hello together. I think we can just give it a small start until Max joins. We'll give a small intro. A warm hello from Berlin. Hope you're all doing great. Thanks for all people joining, especially to all the speakers. And we hope that, all the people tuning in will have a fruitful and lovely Twitter space to follow. Yes, I see that Max is there and Mo's there. Hello, hi Max.
Hey guys. Yeah, sorry for the technical issues. I think it's because Musk wanted to turn off a couple of the microservices. I think we got hit by one of those. Don't worry, I'll definitely make a customer complaint actually, I don't think we have anyone. But anyways,
I was preparing a joke like this as well.
Oh no, let's share it. I'm sorry. I'll do the first time. You can finish it.
I was too obvious to
Oh man, unfortunately. All right. Memes aside, I'm going to take it away. Please.
We've got like a lovely round, a short introduction. We've got Max, co-founder of Centrifuge, and like a known entrepreneur, very funnily near to my hometown. So we are both Pfälzer from the southwest of Germany. We've got Christian. Servus, hi. We've got Christian, CTO. From Flow Carbon, one of our earliest partners and a great inspiration for the entire refi space with their work, also tokenizing assets. And we've got Mo, our CTO of Mental Protocol, a thought leader of really making it super easy for anybody to offset their historical and future carbon footprint. So thanks for all of us coming together. Maybe before we start with a small intro, or everybody would love to hear who you are, for everybody to hear and understand what your background is and maybe what inspired you to Web3 and refi in particular. Just before that, we'd just like to set the context here a little bit. Although we've got like a lovely round over here, unfortunately the topic we have and what we want to jointly underline is that the topic of climate crisis is a very important topic. So it's actually the greatest coordination crisis. We've got huge threats, all of the things we know. So today we want to take a look at the solution ecosystem and challenges, the value propositions of Web3 and refi, and maybe also shed light on how people can help and be part of this journey. So having that said, I'd love to have Max give a start, as you're the first time on our Twitter space. Christian, we already had a Twitter space before, as well with Mo. So happy to hand over to you. How are you doing? Where are you calling from?
Hey there. Yeah, doing great. Thanks, and thanks for having me. I am calling in from Madrid, from Spain, where I lived for the last 3 years. In terms of background, I'm from Germany as well. Started my career in engineering. Had then a few startups from bootstrapped startups back in the early 2000s. To some rather the opposite, heavily venture-backed startups when I was in San Francisco then in the 2010 and onwards. Always in the payments, working capital, financing space. One of the companies I founded is called Taulia and just got recently acquired by SAP. So working capital, financing. Some of the things that I just do for quite a while. And then left this company Taulia in 2017 back in Europe. And obviously got the crypto bug already 2016 and founded a company called, or protocol, well, both actually, called Centrifuge. And Centrifuge is tokenizing real world assets. So we bring, digital assets from the real world. Think of invoices, think of purchase orders, but carbon futures as well, or carbon credits as well, bring them on chain with the purpose of pooling them together and finance them. And one of my favorite pools that we did in the last few months is a pool for carbon futures together with carbon forwards, together with Flow Carbon as a MVP. So it's quite exciting. And maybe what else? The last few years I'm spending in mostly in Web3, investing as a small angel. So that's why I'm here, pretty excited about the space.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Max. Like, I had the pleasure of actually meeting you in New York and listening to one of your panel discussions. So I never thought that like behind this talk and there's like a Pfälzer, because I didn't hear your German accent out. So that was such a funny surprise after connecting with you and finding such a wonderful person also behind that. So thanks also for joining in, and we're very much looking forward in understanding those innovations which you've just mentioned. But let's maybe hand over to Christian. Would love to have you introduce yourself and also what inspired you to refi.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Actually, I'm feeling old saying it, but I have a background in software architecture, like now for over 10 years in the Berlin startup scene. I've been started basically when Rocket Internet went big, and I was there as a software architect for quite a while, and then specialized heavily on this like first 3 to 12 months of building startups, which I did for quite a while then as a freelancer. And I actually joined DeFi and blockchain full-time in 2017. So in Web3, but actually I didn't came from an investment background or something like that. So I was just like remembering when I had classes in network communication and people were saying, oh, there's this unsolved problem, the dollar spending problem, it's unsolved. And then I started, oh, now it's solved. I want to know more about it. I want to be at that space. So I started at a blockchain consultancy, then founded a startup that was tokenizing stocks. So I already had a bit of an experience in tokenizing real world assets. And I was, I think it was 2018. I was interim CTO at a startup called Planetly, which was doing carbon offset calculations for corporations. And so I had first exposure to carbon and climate change and tech around it back then. And then I met Dana and Phil, and it was just like super interesting like to see both of those things coming together. And I thought, I want to be part of that. And that's the story of it.
Awesome. Great to hear again. And it's funny, like you say, some of your roots are like with Planetly, like with basically helping companies to understand what their carbon footprint, and not only carbon footprint, but across, I guess, like ecological, social, and governance dimensions, understanding the company and performing or like improving KPIs towards becoming more sustainable across those different dimensions. And that was actually also my first touch point with sustainability during my master's and PhD times. A friend started to work at Fiol Digital. It's like another market player offering something similar than Planetly. So I really got hooked into refi after like meeting this wonderful gentleman, Mo, whom I would love to hand over. Mo, co-founder and CTO of Menthol. Please share a few words about yourself and explain us what inspires you to refi.
First of all, heyo. Secondly, if there was one person who's like the person who sits on the shoulders of giants amongst this panel, definitely me. Because these guys have like resumes longer than, most people's obituaries, to be honest. Like, amazing. I was like, excuse me, how many hours on the day again? I was just fact checking again, the amount of stuff you guys have done, like, even before this talk. I don't know if I try to get in on Centrifuge when you guys were listing CoinList. I knew about you guys way back when. I loved your thesis. I loved the due diligence. I loved also the fact that you could onboard, small businesses to get really important, loans or get financing. That for me, that was impactful, and it was very, very, very. It would open the market to a new class of business people, maybe your mom and pop. So for me, that was kind of like one of the first projects I felt had or could have a super huge social impact. And the same, honestly. For Flow Carbon, we would not be able to do what we do without super high impact sustainability assets. So, thank you again, like Flow Carbon, for being out there and also supporting us while trying to reach out to everybody. But, enough about you guys. My name's Mo. I'm the co-founder CTO of Mental Protocol. Yeah, I'm, from Somalia, lived most of my life in Canada, Turkey, and Saudi Arabia. More or less equally. Now I'm in Slovakia. As for my professional life, I started off more in the aerospace area, then quickly jumped into sustainable, switched software engineering. Then I did we joined startup Block C as a co-founder, and then very quickly revamped kind of like the tech and the business model so that we got into Tachyon, et cetera. And Consensus actually, they've always had my back. I was one of the few people that got a scholarship way back when, 2017, for their Solidity Dev program. And since then, I got into the accelerator. They helped us investments. Even till now, we meet up regularly. So the ecosystem there is amazing. The mesh is amazing. And then just like a year and a half ago, we started Mental Protocol. And, both of the companies are more or less in sustainability space, but the Block C focuses more on renewable energy traceability for enterprises, allowing, banks or, offices to source renewable energy from nearby projects. So you could literally say, I want to make sure that I'm getting renewable energy right now, being produced right now, within 5 kilometers, or I want solar energy from this specific project. That doesn't exist. So this level of transparency is what we're offering energy retailers to kind of like upgrade the service they provide to the consumer. And then, from there, that was kind of like a launching off point to, where we thought of Mental Protocol doing something similar to, but for everybody, and not just for energy, but for their, let's say, their negative climate impact. So when we were diving into the space, we were a bit ambitious, and then we saw so many people doing awesome stuff, and we thought, what's the missing piece here? And what we landed on was like making the experience for the dApp developer, the user, the average person, make it really easy for them to be automatically, continually sustainable, and be able to trust that the protocol that they're working with doesn't have incentives or structural, there should be enough structural separation so that there's no incentive for us to sell bad quality assets or to play around with any and also not taking any custody for things. So that's what we did, and I'm happy to say that we actually provide a service, and hopefully, if we can get enough demand, we can bully our suppliers, Flow Carbon and the like, to provide discounts, which we then can translate down to the user, which means they can get the asset cheaper with the service, cheaper than just the asset themselves. So that's kind of what we do. Happy for us to take it away from here.
Thanks a lot, Paul. And also that was the lovely summary, also diving a bit into Mental Protocol. So maybe the host channel, if we can go on mute, I think there's some background noise coming from there. Daniel, I think. So maybe just to jump into the topic of refi and what we want to talk about today, I would just love to shortly talk about what Mental Protocol does against the background of refi, and hand over to Christian and Max for us to understand how basically their innovation lines across financing and carbon credit assets, how that actually works and can benefit this whole situation we have. So Mental Protocol, as Mo explained, basically allows any user, it can be individual, an organization, a community. We can also go on a product level or an event level and represent that with a cool pool, which is basically a digital, you can say, carbon ID, holding on the one hand the carbon footprint data, and on the other hand allowing the user to choose, for example, 200%, 300%, 400%, and the impact tokens they want to retire, and basically automate the positive climate action. So that ID basically holds the negative and the positive impact. Now, what Mental Protocol will do in order to spread in the non-Web3 B2B market, which is first target market, is creating a kind of a search engine like dApp.com, where you can go across different chains, see the different dApps, see their carbon footprint, which we anyhow calculate, and then allow them to move up the leaderboard. We'll have different community engaging activities around it. Now, this whole thing which Mental allows, is only possible based on building on, for example, Flow Carbon. So we've got now, with the tokenization of carbon credits, a liquid secure and programmable form of environmental projects, which you can basically add to any economic transaction happening, to any on-chain transaction or to any off-chain transaction, to any sale. So we're also very much looking forward in going to the non-Web3 B2B market. But having said this general overview of Menthol, we like just to note we've got our beta coming up before Christmas this year. We're very much looking forward to that. And with our Cool Pool 001, we'll basically have the second largest event of Berlin, the Next Block Expo, taking place next week. We'll offset this event, hopefully together with all participants. So we've got some really cool stuff there. We'll be sharing a lot of this material as we just basically met the founder, Tom, shout out to him, of the Next Block Expo. Like 2-3 weeks ago. And so excited about that. Happy to jump over to Christian and Max, give you some time to basically help us understand how this financial innovation comes into power and how this can basically support the refi movement.
Okay, I can start. Maybe I can start with what's actually my definition of regenerative finance, which is just like it's a term floating around. Nobody has ever given a real definition of it, and this is just mine, so it might not be the same for everyone. But so I'm always thinking about regenerative finance as a new way of thinking about accounting, actually. So today, when you have a business, most people do actually a bit of dirty bookkeeping. So if you have, for example, an airline, you say things like, "Oh, this is my price, the price for kerosene right now. This is what I have to pay my staff. This is for maintenance." And then on the other side, I'm selling seats on the flight, and the difference is my profit. That's actually not true, because with every flight, or actually most business activities, you do create an environmental impact that currently, just like you say, okay, society has somehow to take care of that, and it's not my problem. And the basic idea of regenerative finance, at least in my understanding, is that you put the environmental impact, you put a price tag on it, and make like a first-class citizen in the world of accounting. And carbon credits are one way to do it. So because carbon is one of the, like, everyone knows it, for climate is a big factor in climate change. Making carbon a first-class citizen in the world of accounting basically means you have to have an asset class that somehow represents carbon. And so I'm not sure if I need to explain carbon credits, but in the one-word sentence, it's the idea of someone takes carbon out of the air. For example, most people know it from biology in school by planting trees, for example, and then this get certified by scientifically developed methodologies, and then people actually can say, I have captured 1 ton of carbon, and then they can sell it, for example, to this aviation industry, which then can say they can offset this carbon credit. And this market does already exist. And so far, I haven't you've mentioned blockchain and regenerative finance. That's actually, it's not necessary for that definition. But like this carbon credit market actually does exist currently, but it has some inherent problems. And I'm always giving an example from when I was working at Bentley. So we did like this carbon calculation for a big corporation. And then they said, oh, okay, we can do this and this measurements to bring our carbon emissions down, which is, by the way, the most important part. So we can't solve everything just with carbon credits. We have to bring emissions down as well. So they brought down their emissions, and then there was an overhead from, let's say, 1,000 carbon credit, 1,000 tons of carbon that they need to offset. And then they said, okay, where do I get it? Let's buy them. And then Bentley started phoning projects and brokers and ask them if they have carbon credits, and then they bought 1,000 carbon credits, and then they could offset them. And actually, from a finance perspective, everything on this process is actually wrong. So the first part that's actually like insane is that if you are a company that has commitments to offset carbons in like next 5 years, next 10 years, next 15 years, and most big corporations actually have made those claims, that it doesn't make any sense to buy those carbon credits on the spot market. For example, if German corporations would do this with energy, we could shut down the country right now. So what you normally do is you buy financial derivatives or buy options, you try to lock in the price, stuff like that. And those companies didn't do that. And then they just went to the spot market. And that was the next problem, because there is no spot market. So there's not such thing like in your Trade Republic app where you can say, I want to buy carbon, and you get the efficient market hypothesis that guarantees you the best price possible. So you just have to call different people that give you different prices. So the basic idea, and we're working on all of those angles, is first of all creating a functional spot market. And this is a bit basically, when you hear tokenization, that's not true only for carbon credits, true for every real world asset that people want to tokenize. That is the case when there's a big demand for this asset class, like for example, carbon has an insanely high demand because all those companies have made claims that they want to get carbon neutral, but it's not liquid. And that's very seldom. So normally you have like, if assets are in high demand, like Apple, most valuable company, it's in high demand, and therefore it's highly liquid. Or from the other side, for example, Russian government bonds, nobody wants to buy or sell them, and that's why they're super illiquid. It's like even illegal in some countries to actually buy them. But there are some asset classes, like for example carbon credits, that are in high demand but they are not liquid. And then we basically, and this is the entire idea of tokenization, we're saying, we want to connect these asset classes to decentralized finance, because decentralized finance has built all the tools in the last years to make liquidity a thing. So basically the entire DeFi movements can be thought of as a process of making liquidity a decentralized process. And that's basically what we're doing at Flow Carbon when we're talking about our token bridge. We basically tokenize carbon credits and make them and connect them with DeFi to make them liquid and tradable there, and create a spot market. And the other side of locking the price in and basically saying, okay, I want to offset in 5 years carbon credits, and I want to buy, but I want to lock in the price now. I want to buy them now. There's this other interesting part, and I can actually hand over to Max. There's this other interesting part of this. There are not only companies that want to offset in 5 years. There's projects that want money now to get financing to have to emit carbon credits in 5 years. So people want to develop a forest somewhere, or solar panels, or cookstove projects, or whatever. And they don't have the financial infrastructure yet to get this money. And this is where a cooperation with Centrifuge comes into place. Is that a good way to hand over, Max?
That's brilliant. Almost like we lost the practice, and we didn't. Let's continue where you just stopped, Christian. On the financing piece. I mean, the biggest problem in the carbon markets is that the demand side is too high and there's not enough supply. So there are not enough of those beautiful carbon credits. Why is that? Well, because there's not enough money to plant the trees, to make sure the mangroves grow, to restore the reefs, and all those beautiful things. So money is needed. And how do we get money? Well, by applying the same mechanisms that finance, DeFi or traditional finance, applies to all real-world assets, or assets as they are called in the real world, by financing them, asserting a risk, and applying the mechanisms that are well known. And that's what we do at Centrifuge. As I said, most recently with futures coming from Flow Carbon, but the principle is very much the same for other assets that we finance, where we have something that is right now illiquid or needs financing for something that happens in the future, and we create pools, often in most cases actually, with different risk classes, tranches, junior and a senior tranche, and then investors can put in money. Money goes to the small medium business. Thanks, Mo, by the way, for the shout out on the Centrifuge history. Goes to small medium businesses, goes to project developers and other companies to finance those projects. That's in a nutshell, on a high level, and I don't want to get too financy or too technical, how Centrifuge works in the case of Flow Carbon, in the case of carbon futures. Maybe, if I may, I want to one step back on refi, because obviously Christian's definition was spot on. That's what it's in the word, regenerative finance. Nevertheless, see, the last 6-9 months, when the term got a little more popular, I think the term is used for pretty much anything where climate sustainability meets Web3. Yes, this is mostly carbon-related, carbon financing, carbon trading, related things, but not exclusively. I do believe it covers as well the climate related projects or protocols that handle the organization or the allocation of resources. Think of money, yes, we talked about that, but as well of time and people. Things like Open Forest Protocol and many others, kind of part of the refi movement or the term as well, I would say. So for me, it's the entire carbon infrastructure that we're building right now, and the allocation of resources to make to battle climate change, if you want. Those are the things, some of the things that I would consider part of refi, although the second part maybe is not technically under this umbrella. And maybe one word why I'm so excited about refi personally, as I said, I mean, I spent the last 10, 15, 20 years in different Web2 startups, and then Centrifuge, obviously Web3. And for a while, I looked for an into the climate world as an entrepreneur, but I was a little bit shy because breaking into a space you have no freaking idea about, that was pretty hard. So I stayed away from it. Actually, in 2015, 16, when I left my previous company, before I went into crypto with Centrifuge, it was a big idea going to climate, but yeah, I just couldn't pull the trigger because I felt I'm just not smart enough. Crypto felt more natural because from the finance background and the Web2 background I had, it was just easier. And now, beautiful thing happened when I met as well Phil from Flow Carbon almost 2 years ago, 1.5 years ago, no, almost 2 actually, that those two worlds came together, like crypto Web3, where was pretty active, and the climate world. And so here I am now, and being hopefully a small part of the refi movement. Yeah, just want to point that out.
Thanks a lot. So great insights, and I can surely, as many of us agree to the statements which were made. So also Max talking about the definition refi, when I explained it in a very short way, I also just many people say crypto and climate tech. As Web3 mostly comes with a financial system, right, to the underlying financial system, but not always. So there's maybe where some confusion is coming from, but also to wrap up on the point of Christian, also I remember in our first Twitter space, you basically said, okay, the big aim of Flow Carbon is bringing liquidity into the market. So it's about creating products which bridge the gap, right, of financial problems of financing on the one side, and then having at the other side anyhow long-term commitments. So understanding and innovating on those products, amazing. And then also thanks a lot, Max, to have here some real world DeFi expertise coming in to wrap it up. Mo, do you have any thoughts contemplating on what Christian and Max were sharing?
Yes, I do, and I'm actually stuck between which one to talk about, but I'll try to speed run and talk about both. All right. Point one, honestly, tragedy of the commons, I think, is actually a great starting point to think about how at a community or society level we are mismanaging the way we have allocate resources, shared resources, and by people doing this local optimization, we actually have a situation where it's globally non-optimal. And what regenerative finance can actually help, just I don't know if people know Dr. Seuss' story, the Lorax, but a great example of tragedy of the commons. Basically, if the community doesn't come together, if we don't shift the incentive structures so that it's promotes community values, if we do not shift internally as agents more of our if we can be selfish, but if we can transfer some of that selfishness towards the community, so that the good of the community is also the good for me, I think a lot of this the issues of the tragedy of commons could be addressed. And I think the advantage we have in refi and with blockchains in general is that we can codify, at least to some degree, and we can build economic structures that enable these communities to, start up and potentially flourish. And regenerative finance, I believe, it's just about allocating those shared resources and incentivizing, making and shifting the resources towards communities, incentivizing them, and then also shifting the perception of the individuals so that their values hopefully shift over time. And the other point I wanted to bring up, I don't know, which I think is kind of important, especially nowadays, is that, let's face it, crypto reputation nowadays isn't great. I mean, it wasn't always amazing. We always had ups and downs. But I mean, it's getting worse and worse. I mean, I think many people didn't expect FTX to blow up in such a astonishing and ridiculously fast fashion. And, this is definitely something we can recover from. But it attests to the lack of maturity in the space. And I think we need a transformation, both in terms of like the way we structure, our businesses, the way we are transparent. We always talk about transparency, yet I see such a big lack of it. And, only recently are many projects, doing crypto reserves and so on. I think in this new era, we have to kind of like definitely take responsibility and always try to provide public goods, try to provide value, try to have, communicate that, try to promote projects that have strong fundamentals. And I think refi is exactly the movement to kind of like take the mantle and hopefully turn this, Mad Max wasteland into, kind of like a more, elvish, game theoretical, sustainable, globally and, financially friendly community, That's kind of like, I think the utopia that people would hope for rather than just the when moon, that we have, unfortunately now. And unfortunately, the bank run that's happening right now because people are afraid. But yeah, I mean, I'm always a solar punk. I'm always optimistic. So I'll leave it that, yeah, we can do a lot. We have a lot of power individually and as a community. And I mean, with centrifuge and with flow carbon, I think, there's a lot of good that can happen. And, definitely recommend anybody to check out what they do and be a part of their community.
Awesome. Mo. Thanks a lot for sharing those thoughts. I think that's a very nice holistic view we're having and gathering over here. So besides like the addressing the problem of bringing liquidity directly, let's say, to the projects in the time needed, and also supplying the demand side with their necessary long-term supply, this aspect besides liquidity and security and like efficiency, we've got simply a different kind of like approach, a decentral governed, community-driven approach, which is possible with Web3. So for us at Menthol, we founded as we are like set as a foundation. We are creating open source public goods, which will be our protocol, which we're launching, and basically allowing the seamless access, like